Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video I have my September wrap up, so let's just get right into it. So this month I actually did two mid-month wrap-ups because there was just so many books that I didn't want it to be like one giant video. So I will link both of those down in the description if you want to watch the rest of the books I read this month. And sort of going off of that, I wanted to talk a little bit here for a second about some changes I'm going to make to my wrap-ups going forward, because I find they're just getting too long. I'm reading too many books again, and I don't really want to start doing weekly reading wrap-ups because I do like pre-filming a lot of my stuff, and I think if I start doing weekly wrap-ups, that is locking me into having to film at least one video a week, which I don't want to do. So what I'm going to do instead, I think, going forward is in my wrap-ups, if I have read a book that I know I'm going to talk about in detail in an upcoming video, I'm no longer going to talk about it in depth in the wrap-up. I will just tell you if I liked it, I'll tell you I read it, I'll tell you my rating, and that's it. And then the rest will be in a future video. So there's going to be a couple books in this specific video that are like that I read for other videos. So I will mention those obviously when I get to them and just sort of go over them very quickly to hopefully cut these down and be a little shorter, a little easier to watch, and still allow me to obviously include all of the books. So with that being said, let's just get into the books that I read the second half of the month. So the first book I read was Moonshot by Alessandra Torre, and this one was good. I feel like I didn't really love or hate this one. It was just kind of okay. This one follows a girl who is the daughter of, I believe, the owner of a baseball team, or the general manager of the baseball team, or like some, like high up position of this baseball team. And she's grown up kind of always being on the field and around the guys, and just like has always been there. She's always loved the game. And they end up getting this player that she has sort of idolized for years, and she's like super excited that they're getting him, and she sort of ends up, when he gets there, like falling for him. But there's kind of like a lot of other stuff going on. There's these girls that kind of look like her that keep getting murdered whenever this team loses, and there's like that sort of underlying mystery thing going on. I did find that that sort of plot line was kind of pointless. I felt like it was very rarely addressed in the book even. And when it was, I feel like it made it obvious who was behind it because there was so little information being given about it. And so I didn't really understand why that was weaved into this book. I thought it was kind of dumb. But that was like a part of the storyline, and obviously following her and this guy who's a baseball player. I thought it was kind of weird. There's like a big age gap between them, and he was like checking her out when she was like 17 or something, and I don't know, I just felt weird about this one a little bit. Even though I read like all kinds of age gap stuff, this one just seemed a little off to me. But I don't know, I gave this one like 3.5 stars. I think I've had like so many books this month that were 3.5 stars. That seems to be like my standard rating right now for books. I don't know, I just haven't really been vibing with anything. Next I read Some Kind of Perfect by Krista and Becca Ritchie. This is the last book in the Addicted series / Calloway Sister series. Not going to talk a lot about this one because it will be mentioned in many upcoming videos. I DNF'd this one at 70%. I thought it was super boring, didn't really care. Those were just my thoughts. Like I said, this will be mentioned a lot in future videos, so I'm not going to get too into it. Next was Surrender to Me by Nina West or K. Tucker. This is the last book in the Wolf Hotel series. I think because I took such a big gap between this book and the previous books, I didn't enjoy this one as much. I gave it 3 stars. I just felt like it was okay. I think that her Empire Nightclub series is a lot better than this series, and I think that because I read like the Empire Nightclub series in between the first books in the series and this last one, I think because I was comparing it to that, this one just didn't seem as exciting. And so it's 3 stars. It was okay. It's like a 4th book, so like obviously I can't tell you too much about it, but it does follow a girl who ends up working in Alaska and falling for this like hotel heir, I guess. And this is like the whole series sort of follows them, and so that's what this one was about. Like I said, it was okay, wasn't the greatest. Next I read The Clover Chapel by Devney Perry. This is the second book in the Jameson Valley series. I hated the first book in this series, but I decided to give the second one a shot because it was like a bonus borrow on Hoopla last month, and so I was like, what the heck, I'll check it out and just like see if it's any better. And this one was better than the first one. I still gave this one I think like 3 stars because this one was super insta-lovey, which I didn't really love. This follows a guy and a girl who get married in Vegas after only knowing each other for 5 hours, and she is like actually convinced that she's in love with this guy even though she's only known him for 5 hours. And he kind of realizes like, oh my gosh, I can't marry this girl, like I'm out of here. And he leaves her a note in the morning that's just like, sorry, like I'm out. And he runs off, and she sort of spends a lot of time trying to track him down to get divorced and can never find him. and she ends up moving to the small Montana town from the first book, and he is living there, which I feel like, to me, that was part of another reason I didn't love this, was it was just all very convenient. Like, both of them met in Vegas, neither of them lived in Vegas, neither of them had ever been to this small Montana town at the time, and then all of a sudden they both end up there, and like 9 years later. That just seemed like really coincidental to me, and was just a little too convenient. And so I didn't really vibe with that. Like I said, super insta-lovey, because she literally thinks she's in love with this guy after knowing him for 5 hours and is like hunting him down to find him. And I just thought that was like a little ridiculous, because she barely knew this guy. Like, it just seemed a little extravagant for what it was. So, like I said, I think I gave this one 3 stars. Didn't really love it. It was okay, but like still not really vibing with this series. I don't know why I see so many people giving this series 5 stars for all the books, and I'm just not vibing with it in that kind of way, so I don't know what's up with that. Next was The Unmatchmakers by Jackie Lowe. I'm not sure how to pronounce that, which is awful because it's only 3 letters. But this one I was really excited about. This is a like cottage country, like Ontario cottage country set book, which I was really excited about because obviously that's like around where I'm from. And so I was really excited to read that. This book did have a lot of sort of like little Canadian like Easter eggs in it. There's a lot of references to Tim Hortons in this. And I think the romance in this was good. This follows a girl who, I believe she's like in her late 20s. I'm not sure they ever say her age, but I'm pretty sure she's like maybe 27, 28 in this book. And her mom is a single mom and has kind of always been anti-men. Like, she wouldn't let this girl have princess dolls when she was a kid, or like watch princess movies, because she said it was like perpetuating this idea of like a guy saving you and like all this like love stuff that she didn't want her daughter sort of being a part of. And she is sort of like that because of her own experience with men, obviously, but she's got these friends who are also like divorcees or widows. I'm not sure if any of them are widows, actually. They might all be divorcees, but they're all single. And she ends up buying this beach house, like her mom does, with her 2 best friends. And one of them has since remarried, and the other one is also very like team single all the way. And she shows up, the daughter shows up to this beach house for the week, for the summer, and she's there and she sees the son of one of the other, like one of her mom's friends' sons is there. And she's like, wow, I don't remember this guy being this attractive. And they're sort of like getting closer, but all these little things keep happening, like sort of keep them separate. And she starts to like piece together, like, okay, maybe this isn't a coincidence. And I don't know how I didn't catch on to this, because the title of this book is literally The Unmatchmakers. Like, that should have like rung some kind of bell in my head, but it just didn't. And that's literally what this is like the 2 moms are trying to make sure that their kids don't get together. But I think it just came off kind of juvenile, because the guy in this was definitely like 30 or 31 and the girl was like 28, and these moms were like jumping through all these hoops to make sure they didn't get together. And I was just like, they're literally like 30 years old. Like, they don't need you to stop them from getting together. And I just thought the whole thing was like really over the top dramatic and kind of overshadowed the romance, which I did really enjoy, like their relationship. Like, I thought it would have been cute if it had more focus on that. But I just thought that like what the moms were doing was very like juvenile and kind of ridiculous, so that sort of ruined the book for me. I think I gave this one 3 stars as well, maybe even 2.5, I don't know, because I did really like the romance, but like the parents just kind of ruined it for me, to be honest. Next was Even If It Hurts by Marni Mann. This one follows a girl who basically is following her first love while she is studying abroad in London, I believe, and she meets this guy and they obviously fall in love, get together, and she ends up at the end of the relationship getting offered an internship in the US. So she goes back home and leaves him behind, and they sort of drift apart, and I don't know that they ever really have like a formal breakup, but they just kind of grow apart and go on with their own lives. And she ends up meeting another guy in America and marrying him. She's engaged. And she is like, okay, this is, you know, the guy for me, like, blah, 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 like, this is great. And then her job ends up sending her to Amsterdam for, like, 6 months or something. And her husband or fiance, I don't know if they're actually married at the time, he's like, no, go, like, this is great for your job, whatever. And they're talking about having kids when she comes back, and, like, they're just, like, really in love and whatever. And she goes to Amsterdam and ends up running into this guy that she dated in college and kind of, like, sort of rekindling with things with him. I gave this book 3.5 stars. I don't know, it just, I think, had a lot of things that I don't like in it. It had obviously like the love triangle of her deciding between, you know, the guy she's currently married to or the guy that she first fell in love with, but I just felt like it was kind of pointless, and I didn't like that it was never really addressed. I feel like her cheating was just never addressed in this book, and I felt like, okay, she was very openly cheating in this book, and I don't know, I didn't really care for it. I wasn't really feeling like I was pulled in either direction towards either guy. Like, I wasn't rooting for her to get with this guy versus this guy. I just really didn't care, to be honest, and I think that that sort of made the book not my favorite. This is sort of where I felt like I maybe was getting in a reading slump and things were just not doing it for me, because I was giving everything 3.5 stars at this point, and this was like good, but just wasn't for me, I don't think. I think a lot of people would really like this, and I know a lot of people do really love this book, but I just don't think it was the right mix of things for me, because it's pretty much everything I don't like in a romance book. So I can see the appeal for some people, but just not for me. Next was Small Town Big Magic by Hazel Beck. I did an entire rant review video on this book. It was truly awful, and I will link that down below as well if you want to watch that. Gave this 1 star. Would have given it less than 1 star if that were an option, but unfortunately it is not. And so yeah, this book sucked, and that's all I have to say about it. Next, I read The Kiss Curse by Erin Sterling. This is the second book in the X-Hex series, and this one is really cute. I gave this one 4 stars. I did really enjoy this one. It follows the girl Gwen, who is, I believe, the cousin of the main character in the first book, or like the best friend, or both. And she is running this like tacky touristy shop in this town, and she hates her best friend or cousin's husband's brothers because they didn't show up to his wedding, and she just thinks that's like super rude of them. So she's kind of got like a beef with them, and one of the brothers ends up showing up, and she is like, dude, I already hate you. And then he decides he's gonna open a like tacky Halloween shop across the street from hers, but he's gonna make it higher end, and so he's like trying to one up her and like steal her customers, and she's obviously like super mad about this. So there's definitely like enemies to lovers in this one. I thought it was really cute. It's really good for Halloween season, obviously. I really enjoyed the series as a whole so far. I think it's really cute and like easy to read witchy rom-com, which is like right up my alley right now. Like, that's one of my favorite things in the fall season. So I did really enjoy this one. Next, I read One of Us Is Next by Karen and McManus. This is another one that I'm going to be talking about in depth in a future video. This one I gave 4.5 stars. Did really enjoy it. I actually enjoyed it more than the first book, which was kind of surprising. But that is all I'm going to say for this video. Next, I read A Merry Little Meet Cute by Julie Murphy and Sierra Simone. This one, I think I was a little bit let down by, because people were really hyping this up as like super like steamy Christmas, you know, whatever. And I was like, okay, like I'm here for all of these things. And it was good, but like it wasn't super memorable, and I feel like they really played up the sort of like steaminess of this. Like, I don't know. I feel like with Sierra Simone being in the author duo, I was looking at this. I haven't read Priest, but I've heard about Priest. So I was like, okay, it's gonna be not what you're expecting with this like little cartoon cover. But it just like, to me, it was like pretty much what I was expecting. There wasn't anything really overly crazy in this. It was one of those books that more hinted at spice than actually delivering on that. And that was kind of annoying. This follows a girl who is essentially a porn star who gets cast in the Hope Channel Christmas movie, which is like the super wholesome, you know, equivalent of like Hallmark Channel type thing. And the guy that she gets cast across from is her like childhood crush. He was like in a boy band, and now he's like trying to, you know, go out on his own and do all these other things. And he's trying to make some money for his mom and sister because his manager has screwed him over and he has nothing. So basically the two of them are both like famous, but she is hiding that she is a porn star because she's supposed to be on this like squeaky clean like channel. And so she is not telling anyone about that, but this guy recognizes her from her closed doors account, which is like the equivalent of like OnlyFans on this. So he's actually like a subscriber of hers, so he knows who she is and what she does, and she knows all about him being in the boy band because she was like a super fan. And so I thought that aspect was kind of interesting in this, that they were both like kind of long-term interested in each other before they even met. Like, they both had an invested interest in the other's lives even though they didn't know each other. And so I thought that was kind of interesting. I've never really seen that play out, but I felt like overall the romance was just kind of okay. It wasn't anything super spectacular. I think I gave this one probably 3.5 stars too, because like I said, I was giving everything 3.5 stars at this point. But like, it was cute. It was a good like Christmassy type read, I guess. There wasn't even a whole lot of Christmas in this for a Christmas book. but it was okay, I guess. Next was Three Little Mistakes by Nikki Sloane. This is the third book in the Blindfold Club series, I think it's called. And I'm trying to finish off this series. I'll probably read the fourth one next month. But this one was probably the best one, I want to say, out of the series. These books don't have a ton of plot, to be honest. This one follows the owner of the club from the first two books, and he is running a bunch of like legal clubs but also illegal clubs, and I think he's in one of his like legal clubs one night and he sees this girl and he's like, there's no way this girl's 21 and like, how did she get in here? And so he's watching her and she ends up getting caught in a fight that's happening in the club, and he like motions her to come see him so he can make sure that she's okay, and he ends up kind of like falling for her, but he doesn't realize that she is connected to someone that he knows, and I'm not going to get much more into that because it's kind of like a spoiler, but I think it really made this book interesting, and definitely if you've read the previous book, I think this one it becomes even more interesting. Like, I probably wouldn't read this one as a standalone, even though you probably could, but I think if you read the second book, you've seen sort of the build up to this book, I guess, and it was just, I thought it was really interesting. I gave this one 3 stars. Like I said, they're not great for like plot wise, but I do think this was probably the best one of the series, and I thought it was pretty good for what it was. Next I read The Bodyguard by Katherine. This one I gave, I think, 3.5, 4 stars maybe 3.5 stars to. This one started out so good. It was so cute. It follows a woman who is assigned to be this guy who is an actor's bodyguard because he's got this stalker, and he doesn't want his mom to know that he has a bodyguard or that he's got these stalkers or anything, because his mom has just been diagnosed with cancer, so he's actually come home to sort of be there for her during treatment and whatever, and so he doesn't want her to know about any of this. He doesn't want her stressed out. So this girl is his bodyguard, obviously, is like the head of his security, and she is following him around everywhere as a bodyguard does, and he's like, look, like, my mom can't know. So they end up fake dating to tell his mom that that's his girlfriend instead of his bodyguard. And I thought, like I said, that this was really, really good up until probably like the 80 to 90% mark. I think the end of the book got like super, super cheesy, and I just thought that was kind of sad because I did really enjoy the build up in their relationship and like all their time together in the first parts of the book. But I thought the end was just kind of over dramatic and, like I said, really cheesy. But it was like a cute little bodyguard romance. I liked that it was sort of like the reverse, like the girl was the bodyguard. I thought that was interesting. And so, like I said, I gave this one, I think, 3.5 stars as well. Did enjoy it, but like, wish the ending was slightly less cheesy. And lastly, I read Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. I think I'm going to do a full review video on this series, so I'm not going to talk much about this one. Gave it 3 stars. Honestly, still don't know if I loved or hated this, but it is what it is. And so those are all of the books that I read in September. Thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button down below. I do new book videos every single week, and I will see you next time.